Welcome to HFY Stories. If you're ready for jaw-dropping stories and a universe full of excitement, hit that subscribe button like it's the big red button in a space opera. Give us a like if you're feeling that interstellar vibe and comment below to join the conversation. We want to hear from you. Yes, you, the spacefarer with a great story idea, or just a fan of epic human victories. The unseen threat. The Galactic Empire had known peace for over 2 centuries. An intricate web of alliances and a military force unmatched in power ensured that no species dared to challenge its reign. The Emperor, Velcro's IE, ruled with an iron fist, confident in the strength of his fleet and the loyalty of his subjects. Yet, whispers of a new threat began to circulate among the outer colonies. Rumors of a species unlike any the Empire had encountered before. These rumors spoke of a species known as humans, who hailed from a small, seemingly insignificant planet called Earth. Scouts sent to investigate had either disappeared or returned with tales of incredible resilience, unmatched adaptability, and a terrifying capacity for warfare. The Emperor dismissed these reports as mere exaggerations, confident that no primitive race from the fringes of the galaxy could pose a threat to his mighty empire. But there was one individual within the empire who did not share the Emperor's complacency: Admiral Lizara, a seasoned veteran known for her sharp instincts and tactical brilliance. She had risen through the ranks by leading countless successful campaigns and had earned the respect of her peers and the fear of her enemies. When the reports about the humans reached her, she felt a sense of unease that she couldn't shake. Against the advice of her superiors, Lizara requested a fleet be sent to the edge of Imperial space, where the humans were reportedly advancing. She argued that it was better to confront this potential threat early, before it could grow into something more dangerous. The Emperor reluctantly granted her request, but only provided her with a modest fleet, confident that it would be more than enough to subdue these upstart primitives. Lizara stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Imperius, gazing out at the stars. Her fleet consisted of 20 warships, each armed with the most advanced weapons and shield technology the Empire had to offer. By all accounts, it was an impressive force. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was marching into the unknown. "Admiral, the fleet is ready," reported Captain Renard, her trusted second-in-command. He was a tall, stern man, his expression betraying no hint of doubt. "Set course for the Terran system," Lizara ordered, her voice calm but resolute. "We will find these humans and assess the threat for ourselves." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Lizara reviewed the data they had gathered on the humans. Their ships were crude by Imperial standards, built for function rather than form. Yet, there was something unsettling about them. The humans had developed weapons that, while not as advanced, were devastatingly effective in their own right. Their tactics were unconventional, often bordering on reckless, but they had a certain unpredictability that made them dangerous. 3 days later, the fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of the Terran system. What they found was not what they had expected. Instead of a primitive backwater, they encountered a well-organized defense grid, with human warships already in formation, waiting for them. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple contacts. The humans are prepared," Renard reported, his voice tinged with surprise. "How did they know we were coming?" Lizara wondered aloud. But there was no time to ponder the question. The human ships, outnumbered and outgunned, did not retreat or attempt to negotiate. Instead, they launched a full-scale assault, targeting the Imperial fleet with pinpoint precision. The first exchange of fire was brutal. The Imperius shuddered as it absorbed the impact of human missiles, their explosions resonating through the ship's hull. Lizara quickly assessed the situation, issuing commands to her fleet. They retaliated with overwhelming force, obliterating several human vessels in a matter of minutes. Yet, for every human ship destroyed, another seemed to appear in its place, their pilots fighting with a tenacity that took the Imperials by surprise. "Admiral, Their tactics are unconventional, Renar said, struggling to find the right words. They're coordinating their attacks in a way we haven't seen before. Adapt to their strategies, Lizara ordered, her mind racing. We cannot afford to underestimate them. But the humans continued to surprise them. They employed hit-and-run tactics, striking at weak points in the Imperial formation before quickly retreating. They used their smaller, more maneuverable ships to evade the Empire's heavy firepower, launching devastating counterattacks that left several Imperial vessels crippled. Despite the Empire's technological superiority, the battle began to turn in favor of the humans. The Imperial fleet was not accustomed to such relentless and unpredictable opposition. Lysara watched as one of her cruisers was overwhelmed by a coordinated human assault, its shields collapsing under the barrage of missiles and energy weapons. "Admiral, we need to withdraw," Renar urged. "This battle is not going as expected." Lizara hesitated. Retreat was not in her nature, nor in the Empire's doctrine. But the evidence was undeniable. The humans were not the primitive savages they had been led to believe. They were a formidable adversary, one that had caught the Empire off guard. "Order the fleet to fall back," Lizara commanded, her voice tinged with frustration. "We need to regroup and reassess." As the Imperial fleet began its retreat, Lizara couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. This was no ordinary enemy. The humans had proven themselves to be a threat far greater than anyone in the Empire had anticipated. And this was only the beginning. The Emperor's Gambit. The Emperor was not pleased. As soon as the news of Lysara's retreat reached the Imperial capital, Velkra's Aye summoned his war council. The grand hall of the palace, usually a place of opulence and grandeur, now felt cold and foreboding. The Emperor sat on his gilded throne, his expression a mask of barely contained fury. "How could this happen?" Velkris demanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are the Galactic Empire. We do not retreat." The council members, a collection of the Empire's most powerful military and political figures, exchanged uneasy glances. None dared speak until the Emperor singled out General Kale, the head of Imperial intelligence. "General, you assured us that these humans were no threat," the Emperor continued, his gaze piercing. "Explain yourself." Kale, a grizzled veteran with decades of experience, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the reports we received were based on preliminary observations. It appears we underestimated their capabilities. The humans are more resourceful and resilient than we anticipated." "Resourceful? Resilient?" Velkarus scoffed. "They are insects compared to the might of the Empire. Yet they have forced one of our finest admirals to retreat. This is unacceptable." Admiral Lysara, who had been standing at the edge of the chamber, stepped forward. Despite the Emperor's anger, she remained calm and composed. "Your Majesty, the humans are unlike any enemy we have faced. Their tactics are unpredictable, and they fight with a ferocity that is unparalleled. But they are not invincible. With the right strategy, we can defeat them." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "What do you propose, Admiral?" Lizara took a breath before responding. "The humans are a proud and defiant species. They will not surrender easily. But we can use that to our advantage. I propose a two-pronged approach. A direct assault on their homeworld to force them into submission, combined with a covert operation to weaken their resolve from within." The room fell silent as the council members considered her words. It was a bold plan, one that could either bring a swift end to the conflict or plunge the Empire into a protracted war. Velkarus leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Go on, Admiral. We know that the humans value their leaders and symbols of power. If we can destabilize their government and create internal strife, they will be forced to divert their attention away from the front lines," Lysara explained. "Meanwhile, our main fleet will strike at Earth itself, crippling their defenses and forcing them to negotiate on our terms." The Emperor nodded slowly, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "It is a daring plan, Admiral. But what makes you so certain it will succeed?" Lizara met the Emperor's gaze, her voice steady. "Because, Your Majesty, the humans are not invincible. They are just as vulnerable as any other species. We simply need to exploit their weaknesses." Velcrus considered her words for a moment before rising from his throne. "Very well, Admiral. You have my approval. Assemble the fleet and prepare for the assault. I want this war ended quickly and decisively." "As you command, Your Majesty," Lizara replied with a bow. As the council adjourned, Lizara made her way to the palace's grand entrance. There, she was met by a familiar face, Captain Renar, who had returned to the capital with her. "Admiral, are you sure about this?" Renar asked as they walked through the marble corridors. "The humans are formidable. This plan is risky." "I know the risks, Renar," Lizara replied. "But we cannot allow them to gain the upper hand. If we strike now, we can catch them off guard." "But what about the covert operation?" Renar pressed. "Infiltrating their government won't be easy." Lizara stopped and turned to face him. "We won't be doing it alone. I've already reached out to the Empire's best covert operatives. They specialize in subterfuge and sabotage. If anyone can succeed, it's them." Renar frowned, still unconvinced. "And what if they fail?" Lizara's expression hardened. "Then we will proceed with the assault on Earth. The humans have proven they are not to be underestimated, but they are not invulnerable. The Empire's strength lies in our unity and discipline. We will overwhelm them with sheer force if necessary." Renar nodded, sensing that further argument would be futile. "Very well, Admiral. I trust your judgment." "Good," Lizara said, resuming their walk. "Prepare the fleet. We leave within the week." As they exited the palace, Lizara couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The humans had already surprised them once, and she knew they would not go down without a fight. But she also knew that the Emperor was not one to tolerate failure. This war had to end quickly, and it had to end in the Empire's favor. The next few days were a blur of activity as the fleet was assembled. Ships from all corners of the Empire converged on the capital, their crews eager for battle. The mood was one of confidence, even arrogance. After all, the Galactic Empire had never lost a war. But Lizara remained on edge. She spent hours studying the data on the humans, looking for any advantage he could exploit. She knew that victory would not come easily, and the stakes were too high to leave anything to chance. Finally, the day of departure arrived. The fleet, now bolstered to 50 warships, stood ready to launch the assault on the Terran system. Lizara stood on the bridge of the Imperius, her gaze fixed on the viewscreen. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Renar announced. "Engage hyperspace drives," Lizara ordered. "Set course for Earth." As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, Lizara felt a mix of anticipation and dread. This would be the Empire's first full-scale confrontation with the humans, and she knew that the outcome would shape the future of the galaxy. But as they hurtled through the stars, a message from the covert operatives came through, encrypted and secure. Lizara opened it, her heart racing as she read the contents. "Admiral," Renar said, noticing her reaction. "What is it?" Lizara looked up from the message, her expression unreadable. "The operatives have succeeded. They've gained access to key positions within the human government. The time to strike is now." Renar nodded, his concern momentarily forgotten in the excitement of imminent battle. "Then let's finish this, Admiral." "Yes," Lizara replied, her voice resolute. "Let's finish this." But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong. The battle for Earth. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace on the edge of the Sol system, a coordinated and disciplined maneuver that saw 50 warships, each bristling with firepower, appear in perfect formation. The sight was awe-inspiring, a testament to the might of the Galactic Empire. Admiral Lysara stood on the bridge of the Imperius, her eyes locked on the view screen displaying the blue and green orb that was Earth. The time for subtlety had passed. Now, it was time for the Empire to demonstrate its superiority. "Prepare the fleet for attack," Lysara ordered. Her voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of tension. This was the moment she had been preparing for, the moment that would decide the fate of this war. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Captain Renner said, his tone professional but tinged with anticipation. "Good," Lysara replied. She could feel the weight of the decision she was about to make pressing down on her, but she pushed it aside. "Begin the assault." The order was relayed across the fleet, and within moments, the Imperial warships surged forward, weapons charged and ready. Their target, Earth's defense grid, a network of orbital platforms and ground-based weapons that stood as humanity's last line of defense. But as the Imperial fleet advanced, something unexpected happened. The defense grid remained inactive, no shields or weapons powering up to meet the oncoming threat. It was as if the humans had simply given up. "Admiral, the defense grid is offline," Renner reported, confusion lacing his words. "There's no resistance." Lysara's brow furrowed. "That's not possible. The humans wouldn't just leave their planet undefended." As the fleet drew closer to Earth, the reason for the inactivity became clear. On the dark side of the planet, hundreds of smaller, almost invisible ships were waiting. They were not part of the official defense grid, and they were scattered across the planet's surface, concealed beneath cloaking technology. The humans had been preparing for this moment, and they had outmaneuvered the Empire once again. Before Lysara could react, the hidden fleet unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy blasts. The attack was swift and brutal, targeting the Empire's warships with surgical precision. It was an ambush, a perfectly executed trap. "Incoming fire!" Renner shouted as the bridge of the Imperius was rocked by explosions. The ship's shields flared as they absorbed the brunt of the attack, but several other Imperial ships were not so lucky. The Valkyrie and the Icarus, two of the Empire's most advanced destroyers, were torn apart in a matter of seconds. "Return fire! All ships engage the enemy!" Lysara barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. She had expected a challenge, but this was something else entirely. The humans had turned their own planet into a weapon. The Imperial fleet responded with deadly force, unleashing a storm of plasma beams and missile salvos. The space around Earth became a battlefield, a chaotic swirl of explosions and energy blasts as the two forces clashed. But the humans fought with a tenacity and creativity that caught the Empire off guard. They used the cover of their planet, weaving in and out of the atmosphere, launching hit-and-run attacks that kept the larger Imperial ships off balance. Every time the Empire seemed to gain the upper hand, the humans adapted, finding new ways to strike back. On the bridge of the Imperius, Lysara was beginning to realize the full extent of the human threat. This was not a conventional battle. It was a war of attrition, and the humans were proving to be masters of it. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the Vanguard and the Eclipse," Renner reported, his face pale. "The human ships are targeting our command vessels. If this continues—" "It won't," Lysara interrupted, her mind racing. They had to regain control of the situation, and quickly. "Order the fleet to regroup. Focus fire on the largest concentrations of human ships. We need to break their formation." The fleet began to tighten its ranks, pulling back from the scattered skirmishes to form a more cohesive front. The concentrated firepower of the Imperial ships started to take its toll, and several human vessels were destroyed in quick succession. But even as the Imperial fleet began to push the humans back, Lysara could see that the battle was far from won. The humans were relentless, launching counterattacks that kept the Empire's forces on the defensive. And all the while, the clock was ticking. Every moment the battle dragged on, the more vulnerable the Empire became. Admiral, we've detected a massive energy signature from the planet's surface, Rena said, his voice filled with alarm. It's a weapon, and it's charging. Lizara's blood ran cold. What kind of weapon? We're not sure, but the power readings are off the charts. If it's aimed at us. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Lizara ordered, but she knew it might already be too late. The humans had one final card to play, and it was about to be revealed. The weapon fired, a beam of pure energy that shot from the planet's surface straight into space. It tore through the void, a blinding lance of light that struck the Imperial fleet with devastating force. The Imperius shook violently as the beam grazed its shields, but several other ships were not so fortunate. The Hercules and the Vindicator were vaporized in an instant, their wreckage scattered across the battlefield. Shields are failing, Admiral. Rena shouted as alarms blared across the bridge. The Imperius was taking heavy damage, and the crew was struggling to keep the ship operational. Devote all power to the shields, Lizara commanded, her mind racing. They needed to neutralize that weapon, or the battle was lost. But with their forces spread thin, and the human ships continuing to harass them, getting a clear shot at the planet's surface was nearly impossible. As the Imperial fleet struggled to regroup, Lizara realized that they were facing a new kind of warfare, one where brute force alone would not be enough. The humans were outthinking them at every turn, and the Empire's usual tactics were proving ineffective. We need to change our approach, Lizara muttered to herself. Rena, prepare the fleet for a full retreat. We need to regroup and reassess our strategy. Rena looked at her in shock. Retreat, Admiral, but we can't win this battle, not like this, Lizara said, her voice firm. The humans have the upper hand here. If we stay, we risk losing the entire fleet. We need to fall back and come up with a new plan. Reluctantly, Rena relayed the order to the fleet. The Imperial ships began to pull back, disengaging from the battle and moving away from Earth. The human ships pursued them for a time, but eventually broke off the chase, content with having driven the Empire from their planet. As the Imperius and the remaining Imperial ships limped away from the Sol system, Lizara stared at the view screen, her mind already working on their next move. The humans had won this round, but the war was far from over. The Empire would return, and next time, they would be ready. But even as she made her plans, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of her mind. The humans had proven to be a far greater threat than she had ever imagined. And if they continued to evolve and adapt, the Empire might find itself facing an enemy it could not defeat. The human counterattack. The Imperial fleet retreated to a nearby star system, where they could regroup and repair the damage sustained during the disastrous battle over Earth. The mood aboard the Imperius was tense. The once confident crew was now shaken, haunted by the memory of how the humans had outmaneuvered them at every turn. Admiral Lizara paced the length of the command bridge, her mind racing as she tried to devise a new strategy. The humans had proven themselves to be far more cunning and resourceful than the Empire had anticipated. They were not the primitive savages the Empire had expected, but rather a formidable enemy that was quickly learning how to fight back. Status report, Lizara demanded, turning to Captain Renard. Renard, his face pale and his uniform stained with soot, looked up from his console. The fleet has sustained significant losses, Admiral. We've lost 12 ships, and many others are heavily damaged. Our weapons systems are partially offline, and our shields are at minimal capacity. Repairs are underway, but it will take time. Lizara nodded, trying to suppress the frustration that was bubbling up inside her. Time was a luxury they could not afford. The humans had the advantage now, and if they did not act quickly, the Empire could lose its grip on the entire sector. Admiral, we've detected movement, one of the sensor officers called out, her voice tinged with urgency. Multiple ships are entering the system, human ships. Lizara's heart skipped a beat. How many? At least 20, and more are dropping out of hyperspace as we speak. The realization hit Lizara like a sledgehammer. The humans weren't content to simply defend their planet. They were taking the fight to the Empire. They were launching a counterattack, and the Imperial fleet was in no condition to repel it. All hands to battle stations. Lizara ordered, her voice steely and determined. Prepare for incoming fire. We may be outnumbered, but we will not be outmatched. This is our chance to show the humans the true might of the Empire. The Imperial fleet scrambled to form a defensive perimeter as the human ships closed in. The battle was swift and brutal, a furious exchange of firepower as the two sides clashed. The humans fought with a ferocity that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring, their smaller ships darting in and out of the Imperial formation, exploiting every weakness. Lizara watched in grim silence as one of the human ships broke through the defensive line, its weapons blazing as it targeted the Imperius directly. The ship's shields flared, struggling to absorb the onslaught, but it was clear that they would not hold for long. Focus all fire on that ship, Lizara ordered, pointing to the attacker. We need to take it down before it breaches our shields. The Imperius returned fire, its massive cannons unleashing a barrage of plasma bolts that tore into the human vessel. The ship shuddered under the impact, but it did not retreat. Instead, it pressed forward, its engines burning at full power as it attempted to close the distance. The human ship was closing in, and Lizara could see that it was preparing for a final, desperate attack. The ship's hull was scorched and battered, but its weapons were still active, and it was heading straight for the Imperius's command bridge. Brace for impact, Lizara shouted, gripping the edge of her console as the human ship hurtled toward them. But just as the ship was about to collide with the Imperius, it suddenly veered off course, banking hard to the right. A second human ship, this one larger and more heavily armed, had entered the fray, drawing the attention of the Imperial fleet. Lizara's eyes widened in disbelief as she realized what was happening. The humans had sacrificed one of their own ships to distract the Imperial fleet, allowing the larger vessel to slip past their defenses. It was a bold, reckless move, but it had worked. The second human ship unleashed a devastating barrage of missiles, each one targeting a critical system on the Imperius. The ship's shields flickered and died as the missiles found their marks, and the bridge was plunged into chaos as systems began to fail. Damage report, Lizara demanded, her voice strained. We've lost main power, Renar reported, his voice barely audible over the alarms blaring throughout the ship. Weapons are offline, and we're venting atmosphere on multiple decks. We're sitting ducks, Admiral. Lizara clenched her fists, her mind racing as she tried to find a way out of this nightmare. The humans had them cornered, and there was no escape. She had to make a decision, and fast. Order the fleet to disengage, Lizara said, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. We need to fall back and regroup. Renar hesitated. But Admiral, if we retreat now? We have no choice, Lizara interrupted, her tone brooking no argument. We can't win this fight, not in our current state. We need to survive so we can fight another day. Reluctantly, Renar relayed the order, and the Imperial fleet began to pull back, disengaging from the battle as the human ships pressed their advantage. The Imperius limped away from the battlefield, its once proud hull scared and battered. As the fleet retreated, Lizara stared at the viewscreen, watching as the human ships held their position, refusing to pursue. They had won this battle, and they knew it. But even as Lizara felt the sting of defeat, she knew that this war was far from over. The Empire had underestimated the humans, but that mistake would not be repeated. They would regroup, they would rebuild, and they would return to finish what they had started. But there was a part of Lizara, deep down, that wondered if the Empire was truly prepared for the fight ahead. The humans were unlike any enemy they had ever faced. They were resourceful, relentless, and most of all, unpredictable. They had turned the tide of battle against all odds, and they had done it with a bravery that bordered on recklessness. As the Imperius entered hyperspace, leaving the battle behind, Lizara made a silent vow. She would study the humans, learn their tactics, and understand their strengths and weaknesses. She would ensure that the next time they faced off, the Empire would be ready. But for now, all she could do was wait and prepare for the inevitable rematch. The Reckoning. Months had passed since the disastrous retreat from Earth, and the Galactic Empire was in a state of relentless preparation. In the vast, dark expanse of space, the Empire's capital world was a hive of activity, its once silent corridors now buzzing with the sound of urgent construction and strategic meetings. The defeat had been a humbling experience, but it had also ignited a fire within the Empire's leadership, a determination to not only reclaim their lost honor, but to crush the humans once and for all. Admiral Lizara, now the head of the Imperial Strategic Command, had devoted every waking moment to studying the humans. She pored over every piece of intelligence, every report, every captured transmission. She dissected their tactics, their technology, and their very nature. It became clear that the humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were a formidable adversary that required a new approach. In a secure briefing room on the Imperial capital, Lizara stood before an assembled group of high-ranking officers and strategists. The holographic display projected a detailed image of Earth and its surrounding space, along with the data and analyses Lizara had gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady and commanding. "Our previous engagements with the humans have proven that they are not to be underestimated. They have shown remarkable adaptability and resourcefulness, and our tactics have failed to counter their unconventional methods." One of the officers, a grizzled veteran named General Toran, spoke up. "Admiral, what's our new strategy? The humans have proven they can fight back fiercely, and they're getting stronger. How do we plan to defeat them?" Lizara's eyes narrowed as she addressed the room. "We will employ a multi-pronged strategy that targets their weaknesses and exploits their strengths. We will adapt our tactics to their methods, and we will utilize new technologies and alliances to gain the upper hand. But most importantly, we will not make the mistake of underestimating them again." The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement and anticipation. Lizara's plan was bold and risky, but it was their best chance to turn the tide. The Empire would strike at key points, disrupt human supply lines, and use their superior technology to isolate and overwhelm individual human fleets. Meanwhile, on Earth, the humans were also preparing. The victory over the Empire had galvanized them, and they had used the time to strengthen their defenses and innovate their own technologies. The humans had transformed their planet into a fortress, and their space fleets had been significantly bolstered. They were not about to rest on their laurels. Captain Alex Monroe, the hero of the Battle for Earth, was now leading a combined force of human and allied fleets in preparation for the inevitable return of the Imperial forces. In the Human Command Center, he reviewed the latest intelligence reports with his team. "They're gearing up for another assault," Monroe said, his voice steady and resolute. "We need to be ready. They've learned from their mistakes, and they're coming at us with everything they've got." Lieutenant Commander Sarah Thompson, his second-in-command, nodded in agreement. "We fortified our defenses and expanded our fleet. We've also strengthened our alliances with other species that have faced the Empire's aggression. If they come at us, we'll be ready." Monroe's gaze was intense as he looked at the holographic map of their defensive positions. "Good. We'll need every advantage we can get. We've shown them once that we can fight back, but now we need to show them that we can win." As the preparations reached their final stages, both sides waited with bated breath for the conflict that was about to unfold. The Imperial fleet, now fully repaired and upgraded, moved into position, ready to launch their new offensive. The humans, equally prepared, awaited the onslaught with a resolve that had been forged in the fires of battle. The day of reckoning arrived, and the two forces met in the cold, vast expanse of space. The battle began with a ferocious exchange of firepower, each side testing the other's defenses. The initial skirmishes were intense, with the Empire's new tactics clashing against the humans' improved strategies. Lizara's plan unfolded with precision. Imperial forces executed a series of coordinated strikes against critical human positions, aiming to cripple their ability to fight back. But the humans, prepared for this exact scenario, responded with tenacity and ingenuity. They used every tool at their disposal to counter the Empire's assaults, turning each battle into a brutal contest of wits and firepower. The turning point came when the Empire's flagship, the Eclipse, led a decisive strike against one of the human command ships. The battle was fierce, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But as the tide of battle seemed to swing in favor of the Empire, a sudden, unexpected event changed everything. A group of human ships, previously thought to be neutral or uninvolved, emerged from the shadows and joined the fray. They were allies of the humans, their arrival a testament to the strength of the alliances the humans had forged. The new forces tipped the balance, and the Empire's fleet found itself surrounded and outnumbered. Admiral Lysara, watching from the bridge of the Imperius, felt a wave of desperation. The battle was slipping away from them, and their losses were mounting. She realized that their position was untenable, and that retreat was the only option left. All ships, retreat immediately. Lysara ordered, her voice breaking through the chaos. We're falling back. Get us out of here. The Imperial fleet began to withdraw, their once mighty vessels now battered and beaten. The humans, victorious, watched as the Empire's forces retreated, their cheers echoing through the command center. It was a hard-fought victory, but it was clear that the Empire had been decisively defeated. As the Imperial fleet limped away from the battlefield, Lysara took a moment to reflect on the outcome. The humans had proven their resilience and their ability to adapt. They had faced the might of the Galactic Empire and emerged victorious. The Empire had underestimated them, and that mistake had cost them dearly. On Earth, celebrations erupted as the humans celebrated their hard-won victory. Captain Monroe and his team were hailed as heroes, their bravery and determination a symbol of humanity's strength. In the aftermath of the battle, both sides would need time to recover and rebuild. The war had shown that the conflict was far from over, but the humans had established themselves as a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Empire had learned a harsh lesson, that underestimating humanity came with a heavy price. And as the stars shimmered in the vast expanse of space, the echoes of this historic conflict would linger, a reminder of the power of resilience, ingenuity, and the indomitable spirit of humanity.